Oh, okay. Thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. By the way, you see the picture behind me is a snapshot of a sunset here from my balcony. I'm on the eighth floor of a condo right on the right off the beach here, north shore of Puerto Rico, and that's the ocean. It's just a few hundred yards away from me. Uh, you can see in the on the right side of the picture there, my little buddy stick antenna attached on the balcony rail, and that antenna gets out like gangbusters. Of course, having a clear view to the horizon on over the ocean, it does wonders. It acts like an extra amplifier. So let me pull up here. Okay, I'm going to do a share. Let's see here. Here we go. Okay, am I think I'm being seen now, all right?
We can see it, yeah.
Okay, good. This is a map showing you the island of Puerto Rico. Here is a large rectangular island, and in the red circle is the island that I was invited to operate on the field day. This is called Vieques. The island is a really small rural island. It belongs to the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. The total population there is about 8,000. The island measures just about 20 miles from west to east and like about 4.5 miles from north to south. So we were located right on the center of the North Shore, which actually is the main town of that island. It's called Isabel Segunda, which means Isabel II. I guess it was named after one of the queens of Spain. And right on the outskirts of that little town, there's a historic lighthouse. And that's the grounds where that was set, overlooking the ocean. To get over there from the island, uh, let me just orient you here. San Juan, which is the capital of Puerto Rico, is this city here on the north coast of Puerto Rico. Where I am right now is just on the, I'm in a suburb of San Juan, just to the east of that. And I drove over towards the eastern tip of the island. This area here at the eastern tip used to be the naval station, Roosevelt Roads Naval Station. It was decommissioned about 15 years ago. I was actually stationed there when I was serving in the Navy back then between 83 and 87. And it was a very large naval base. I was working in a naval hospital. There was a naval air station there too. And that has all been decommissioned and is now a civilian airport. So we took off from that very same airport in this little Piper Cherokee, which is just about a 10-mile flight over the Vieques Sound here to get over to this island. Let me uh, advance it here. This is how I do that. Okay, this is the invitation that we had from the organization. The organization is the Vieques Island Amateur Radio Club, and this was actually the official field day site for the ARRL section of Puerto Rico. So, and this, you can see the picture here of this gray building. This is a historic lighthouse building, and the light is just on top of it. It's just like it's not a very tall structure, but it's on a cliff that's overlooking the shore there. So that's the historic lighthouse. And there's this sign here in front of it which says "We are Vieques." So this they operate at 2 meters, 10, 15, 20, 40, and 80 meters. I was invited to operate there by the ARRL section manager of Puerto Rico, whose name is Carmen Greene. And they very kindly bought me a passage on his airplane. This is the airport that used to be the Naval Air Station airport. It is now a civilian airport. They call it Jose Aponte de la Torre Airport. I drove up there and then got onto one of these little Piper Cherokees. Uh, The locals say like you're right, you feels like you're flying, riding on a kite when you're riding one of these things. Uh, this is a video. I don't know how this is coming over.
We can see it. It's a tiny bit choppy, but we can see it.
Yeah, I took a little video of what it's like. And this was leaving Puerto Rico. We were, it was only a 10-minute flight, but I thought it would be nice just to see what it looked like. I'm going to turn around inside. You can actually see what it looks like inside in just a moment. There was one other passenger in there. It's a four-passenger seat. There's the pilot. And it was actually a pretty smooth flight.
What was the temperature like there?
The temperature was right around, this was early morning. It was around 7 a.m. So the temperature was like between 75 and 80 degrees. I'm just going to go ahead. Then when we landed, we got out of the airplane and they put this little plastic little step thing to step out. That's all you needed to do. And then this is the air terminal. It's really a quaint little thing. You just walk right off the tarmac into that little door that the security guard is opening. And once you're inside, that's what it is. It looks like this little area, waiting area, is a tiny little belt if you did have any baggage or anything that had to come out on the belt, but we didn't, of course. I just had my little backpack. And then you're met by these signs when you're leaving the airport. This one says, "Smile, you are in Vieques." And another big sign here says, "Welcome to Vieques. It's all an adventure." And so I was very kindly picked up by Carmen Greene, the section manager, and her husband. They picked me right up at the airport and they drove me immediately over to this is the town. It's the Isabel Segunda. And this is we decided to pose in front of the city hall. That's called Casa Alcaldía. This is architecture from the Spanish colonial times. So this town has been there for quite a long time, a good number of years. But it's very picturesque. Uh, this was the extent of the sightseeing that we did. And there's another pose that we had. Carmen is section manager. She's only been a ham radio operator for 8 years. And she is the very first female section manager for Puerto Rico section. So she is kind of like a pioneer for them that way. And she's doing very, very well in her position. Here's another little video I took of, we were right on the plaza there, the Central Plaza.
It's here in the plaza, Central Plaza of Vieques here. There's the church. And there's Carmen.
Hola.
Hi. And her
Hi
husband.
to everyone.
Hi. Ooh, and these chickens are getting really close here. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so it's a very rural part of Puerto Rico. This is this is the actual grounds of the lighthouse. There's the lighthouse building, which is the blue building here. And this other building to the left side is where we actually operated from. And you can see a few tents in the foreground here, and there's a canopy there. Those were setups by a couple of GMRS groups. The GMRS in Puerto Rico, there are a number of groups that are MCOM oriented, and they decided to do an off-the-grid exercise at the same time we were doing our ham radio field day. And of course, Puerto Rico was very severely impacted by the passage of Hurricane Maria. Uh, and there was an absolute loss of all communications when the cells came down, cells towers came down. There was no electricity in the entire island for many weeks after that. So the only thing that actually had any kind of communication in some cases were Baofeng handheld radios that people would use. They would have one over at a police station so they can call the police. And they were being used, of course, without licenses because it was a question of life and death. The FCC was aware it was an emergency. So the entire island was taken completely by surprise, unprepared for the size of Hurricane Maria and the impact it had. So they are now definitely getting better prepared, and this is a very important part of the field day exercise for them. Uh, just some pictures of their antennas. This is a mast here with a 2-meter vertical antenna, and there's some inverted V's coming off the side of that. There's another close-up of that mast with the uh, uh, these are guy wires, and there's some ladder line going up. This is a V type of dipole that was used for 2015 and 10 meters, and that was on top of the building that we were operating from. This is the HF position that we operated from. NP3VI was operated 2A, and I was sharing the HF position here with this gentleman. His name is Emmanuel Cruz, November Papa 4 Delta. He is the section emergency coordinator for Puerto Rico. So he's learning a little bit of Morse code, but we decided that we were going to take turns. He was going to do the phone operation and I did the CW operation. So that's what we decided. Here's a little video to see him setting it up.
This is the building station. And this is the other, the second HF position here for
Yeah, that's
field
WinLink.
day. There's my little.
Full breaking? You want a full breaking?
I like semi-breaking.
Semi breaking?
This is a little gift for you.
Okay, that was, of course, a couple hours before the actual start of field day. We were setting up, he was setting up the key for me there. This gentleman over here is Mr. Felix Garcia. He is the Director of Communications for the Puerto Rico State Homeland Security Office. He's not a licensed ham, but he gave an excellent presentation on the voice interoperability emergency communication system that they have now, which is absolutely excellent. The Puerto Rico government has collaborated with their Homeland Security and offered mountaintop locations for GMS repeaters that now cover the entire island. And these are available 24 hours a day for the general public to use. And they're in the process of setting up emergency training weekly nets for the people to check in and to be able to use these repeaters. So this is going to be a existing way for them to communicate if there is another situation like Hurricane Maria. And it's very well integrated with amateur radio as well, which I really like to see the GMRS and amateur radio work together for emergencies. This is another device that they have. It's the compact rapid deployable internet system where these units can be deployed. And what they do is they take satellite signal and they can provide internet to the general public and some cellular phone capabilities within a close range of these particular units. And they have a number of these they can deploy again in times of emergencies. So after we went to that little conference, we came back. It was about time to have lunch, and we went back to this is the building again where we had the operation. We operated right down here. You can see the antennas here on top. Here's that V dipole. There's looks like a cubicle quad for 2 meters up here. And this is the sign that says "We are Vieques," and that's overlooking the harbor. And there's myself, Carmen Greene, and Emmanuel Cruz that we posed for this picture sitting there on that sign. It was very pleasant weather. It was not very hot at all. And because you're right by the ocean, you have those trade wind breezes, so you always have some circulation of air. This is one of the GMRS groups. It's the Puerto Rico Community Communications, and they were set up there doing an off-the-grid operation. Here's another GMRS group, which is the Humacao GRMS group, and they were also set up for the off-the-grid exercise. There's a close-up again of where we were. There's the operating position, and here are our antennas. And this is
Secure Field Day. This is November. Papa 3, Victor India.
that's Emmanuel calling CQ.
Secure Field Day. Secure Field Day. This is November. Papa 3, Victor India.
Beautiful view there of the water.
Secure Field Day. Secure Field Day. This is November. Papa 3, Victor India. Carol, for the newer hams and those who are working on getting into HF, can you explain how salt water helps propagation?
Yeah, the salt water acts as a perfect reflector. And what it does is the reflection of your antenna into the salt water adds 3 dB of signal strength. It's actually as if you're doubling your power when you're that close to the salt water. It acts like a perfect metal reflective surface. So that's an ideal place to operate from, that's for sure. And yeah, that was Emmanuel calling CQ. You heard him. And he was absolutely astounded. We were taking turns logging and operating. While he was calling CQ and operating phone, I was doing the logging for him. And when I was operating CW, he was doing the logging for me. I would write down what the call sign is, and he would then put it in the computer. That way we could do it faster. He was absolutely astounded that at the rate that I was doing CW contacts when he just could not match it on voice. The CW gets through because of the tremendous. They get like about a 10 dB advantage, I believe, power-wise on CW compared to phone. So we got through pretty well. This was the very first hour. We were on 20 meters, and the conditions were not really very good at that time. So he did the next hour on voice, and then the third hour that I was there, which was between well, 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock our time. That was Atlantic Standard Time. We switched over to 15 meters, and the bands really got better at that time. And I just heard a whole bunch of stations coming over from the West Coast. The first West Coast station I worked was AG6AU, which is the El Dorado County Amateur Radio Club over there in Placerville. And they were just bombing in on CW, and I was really happy to work them. And I worked another handful of Sacramento Valley section stations. I didn't hear Bill in N6NA. I was listening for you fellas, but it just didn't work out. I didn't copy you, but I was really happy to be able to do that. And
Carol,
then I had,
Carol,
yes,
I heard you guys. I tried to reply, and I recognized that call, and I just wasn't getting through. But I did hear you.
okay, yeah, we were in November, Papa 3, Victor India, and We do appreciate the attempt anyway. But by that time, it was already getting close to 5 p.m. and I had to get over to the airport because the airplane was scheduled to leave at 6, and they always want us to be there an hour ahead of time. So I had a full, 3 hours or so of operating there, and a wonderful. They served a wonderful chicken and rice lunch there. Was cooked in the kitchen right behind us in there in that area there at that same building, and tremendous hospitality. I can say that the little bit of time that I spent on the island does not do justice to the beauty of it. Uh, a full 2/3 of the island is a wildlife preserve. There is just so much beautiful nature there, beautiful beaches, and I would love to go back and visit it just to see a lot more of it without having to spend a few hours on the radio. But I have to say the people there were absolutely wonderful. They were very, very hospitable. I was absolutely thrilled. And there's a selfie I took of myself there with Emmanuel, and I believe that's probably the last picture I have. Almost. Yep, that's it. So thank you very much for letting me share these pictures with you all. And
Thank you, Carol. Yeah.
yeah, you get a
Yeah,
little
it's a
view of
nice, what a
a little deep.
what a great experience. Thanks for sharing that. Questions for Carol? No, and how did you like that C.W. Morris keyer, that 3D printed keyer? Is that yours or was that theirs?
Oh no, that's the same one that I brought here. And
Okay. All right.
I've got it right here, and I just
Okay.
love it
You do.
because
Okay.
it weighs practically nothing. And I learned about this from K4SWL, who he's a YouTuber that does parks on the air, and he showed how cute this thing is. It's like I think $39,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
absolutely love it. It worked like a
They make
breeze.
they make nice keys. C.W. Morse. They're in Texas, I think. They
Yes.
father son 3D printing
Mhm.
operation. So, um, so you hear that, Hank? Other people do 3D printing. It's not just you. All right. Thank you, Carol.